Hi, my name is Amy E. Reichert. I am the author of The Optimist Guide to Letting Go, and you are watching Author's Voice.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Author's Voice, connecting authors to the world. I am Sonali, and this is Lit with Love, where we connect you with romance authors. Welcome, thank you for being here. Our guest today is the very lovely Amy Reichert. So we start with me mispronouncing my guest's name.
That's
welcome.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. I always mispronounce yours, so it's just, fair play.
All right.
That's right.
Welcome, Amy. And if you're watching this on Facebook Live, please remember that you can ask questions in the comments, and please do ask questions in the comments. You can also purchase a signed book. Amy will be signing books for you by going to authorsvoice.net. So please do purchase the book. The book is $16, and it is called The Optimist's Guide to Letting Go. Beautiful, beautiful cover and beautiful book. It's from Gallery Books, and it is all of $16. So welcome again. And I'm going to let Amy take us into the book and talk to us about what it is. It's this beautiful intergenerational story of mothers and daughters. So Amy, where did that come from? And please tell us more.
So The Optimist's Guide to Letting Go is the story of 3 generations of women over 7 days, and there's one big secret. So the 3 generations are the teenage daughter, the mother, and then the grandmother. And the grandmother is not a very nice woman. We'll call her grand monster, since I can't use the other word in a live broadcast.
You actually can use any words you want to. So.
I'll be classy today. And she's very judgmental. She is very hard on her daughters. And at the beginning of the book, she has a stroke. And when the daughter is going through all of her paperwork at the hospital, she discovers some things she's never seen before. And when she goes looking for answers, she discovers the secret that her mom has kept hidden. And over the course of the novel, you start to understand how these women are with one another and why they are the way they are. And you get to peel back the layers of the complicated mother-daughter relationship. So it was a lot of fun to write.
Yes, and well, it is a lot of fun, but there's also, it deals with themes of grief.
Yes.
And lies and secrets and families, so there is that. But, so I do want to know what the inspiration for it was, because it has this really interesting thing where each chapter, each little bunch of chapters starts with a question.
Yes.
And I thought that was really interesting how you set that up. Where did that come from?
So several years ago, I came across an article, I think it was in Real Simple, that was 10 questions to ask your mom before she dies. And like so many interesting articles I find over the years, I rip it out, I shove it in a folder, and I forget about it. When I was going through my little inspiration things for this book, when I was putting it together, I pulled it out, and I thought that might be a really interesting way to frame the book. So that is what I did. There are 10 different questions that I worked so that they went along a little bit with the story. But each section has a chapter from the teenager, a chapter from the mom, and a chapter from the grandma. So it's told from all 3 of their perspectives. So that's where that one came from. And I did sit down and ask my mom these questions. And that was really, really enlightening. I learned some things about my mom that I'd never known before, which was special. And I'm hoping that when people read this book, they are inspired to have conversations with their mothers or their daughters that they haven't had before.
Absolutely, because it's amazing that you say that, because as as I was going through it, that was, and then I heard you say that, and I was thinking, I really need to, and I'm going to be seeing my mom next month. I'm going to India and spending some time with her. So this is really something. I think this is such a great list.
Thank you.
If you still have the opportunity to do that with your mom. And then I had a really sad, depressing thought.
Oh no!
Which was, if something ever happened to me, I should make sure I answer these questions for my daughter somewhere,
yes.
so she'd have them. So they're questions like, what is the one fact you know
Right.
to be true? What are you most proud of
Right.
about me and things? It's
What's
just,
your biggest regret? What was something you do differently? So those are things that you don't often talk
Yes,
about, big
yes.
issues. And I find the mother-daughter relationship so complicated. And it's also very one-sided. I know, at least with my mom, it's all about what she can do for me, be it to cook
Yes.
for me or clean for me when I was younger or help me with the kids now. And once in a while, she'll ask me to come over and lift heavy boxes and stuff. But almost always it's about what she can do for me. And I don't think about what her heartbreaks were and what her dreams were. And I really wanted to think about that and how that changes women over the course of a lifetime.
yeah, there's that whole thing, right? With as we age, why does our older people actually have more richness to their life,
Yes.
and yet we almost behave like they're irrelevant, right? As
Correct.
we go along, and that's so not true, and that's having those conversations with your parents, but is just
Yes.
I think that's such a great idea. I'm definitely going
Thank
to do
you.
it.
You have to let me know how it goes.
Yes, in fact, I was going to ask you if there was a particular question or a conversation that stuck with you.
Well, I found out some really interesting things about my mom. Some of them are very personal, so I'm
Right.
not always sharing those. But one of the little fun tidbits I found out, at least it was funny to me, is my mom has never said the F word in her entire life. Not even when she dropped something super heavy on her foot, which is, I think, completely warranted at that moment. And I use it more than I should. And so that just, I mean, it's definitely, I think, more generational.
Oh yeah.
But that amazed me that not even once did that fall from her lips. And so that little fun nugget is something that I took out of that conversation.
I love it, and I mean, culturally also, it's my mom might be the only Indian mother of her age who does use the word, but she says it with a PH, so, not an F. So
It's a PH, totally different word.
completely. So the pronunciation is with a PH, and she says it, and my brother and I cringe. We're like, "Ooh, first she said it and she pronounced it like that, and then it runs in your head for a bit."
That makes me so happy. And now I want to put that in a book.
And yeah, now you want to hear my mom say it.
I totally do.
So she says puck, not fuck. So
Oh,
it's
that's
kind of-
great.
and she's gonna kill me. Hi, mom, if you're watching.
Hi. Hope I get to meet you someday.
You will. All right. So two things from what you were saying, I did want to stop and talk about, and
Yes.
one is the 3 points of view, which is a very unique thing
you.
about the book, and very interesting because you're talking you're falling into the points of view of
Yes.
these 3 characters, and I want you to talk a little bit about what that experience was like, and as a writer, what that was like.
Well, for obvious reasons, the mother character, who is roughly in her 40s, was the easiest voice to find because I felt very natural writing from that, especially when she was yelling at her teenage daughter. Those scenes came way too easily to me and were so much fun to write. I'm just waiting for my daughter to really mess up so I can use some of the wonderful
You're
things.
waiting?
I'm
Tell
not.
us how old your daughter is.
She's 14. But I will say that my character in the book is 14 as well. And while this character in my book is nothing like my daughter did read some of those chapters, so this kind of goes in with the question as well, to make sure I had the teenage voice right. And she's like, yeah, that's kind of, that's what I would sound like. So I did use her as a model for my teenager voice. And the things that you worry about are a little bit different when you're a teenager. One of the things that's important in the book is the mother and the grandmother are both widows. And now they're not recent widows, so the grief is a little bit more aged. But I find it interesting because too often when someone loses a spouse, it's immediate and everyone is there right away. But it's really the year, 2 year, that it never goes away. So, and you still are expected to move on with life, and people don't think you should be grieving the way you maybe feel like you want to. So you find my characters at the beginning of the book, especially May and Gina, who are the teenage daughter and the mother, really struggling to move past the absence of the father and the husband. I did a lot of research into how grief and losing a parent affects teenagers, because it affects them differently than it would an adult who lost a spouse. So that was really interesting. And I also really enjoyed then jumping into the grandmother's voice, because she's so deliciously complicated. And she is not a particularly nice woman. And I really enjoyed peeling all of that back on her and talking about why she is the way she is, and exploring. And a lot of her story is told in flashbacks. So you see her as a young girl, and you see her a slightly older. And I really enjoyed filling in those blanks.
You keep saying that she is not a nice person, and I actually really enjoyed her.
Good.
Because I think she is such a snapshot of expectation from women, what she does with it. Now,
I agree.
There's a lot of that equivalency in plot going on, because the same kind of thing has happened to the mother and the daughter. The way that they've reacted to it has been completely different. And so they have, grief and it being felt, and grief and it being just shoved under the carpet, and all of that. I mean, you do. I think the grief and how the women handle it through the book was my favorite thing.
Thank you.
And I think she is a very well motivated character. I mean, she does some really crazy sauce things. You want to tell the story of where the gift thing comes, because you know what? I was appalled when naturally, when you, and I'll let you talk about it, but talk about it, and then I'll tell you
your reaction.
My reaction to it was.
So another inspiration of this book is a story a friend told me many, many years ago, and I've been clinging to it, knowing I wanted to put it in a book somewhere, and I was waiting for the right chance. And what happened was, it was the day after Christmas, and her mother-in-law sent an email to all of her children and the spouses. And the email very simply said, "Gifts this year were not good." You should see the camera lady is reacting to that. And I loved it so much. Now, obviously, if you have to deal with this person, it's probably very challenging. But I loved it, and I loved thinking about what kind of woman would send that email. And so that is a lot of where Lorraine started. And I did steal that story, and I put it in the first chapter. And it was stepping back to how she became the woman she is. And I did have confirmation that, yes, that actually happened. I was at a second event telling the story, and someone came up to me afterwards and said, "Well, did so-and-so tell you that story?" And I'm like, "Yep." And I'm thinking I'm busted and I'm in trouble. And she's like, "Yeah, that's my mother-in-law too. It's all real." So
I had two daughters-in-law.
Two daughter-in-laws confirming this story, that this really happened. And I really loved thinking about that. And I think it's just a great story. I have not ever told that story, and the audience has always reacted.
It's because, we all have the parents to tell you exactly what is wrong with, not about gifts.
Right. But here we're not. God, I love it.
But what I love about it is why she does it. Yeah. And then again, that irrelevance of older generation, right? Yeah. We just assume that she's being a bitch, but she's in that particular moment, for that, she's not being a bitch. They give her something that obviously indicates that they don't know who she is in her mind.
You're
and
right.
It's about wanting to know, which means she really wants to be known by her daughters, which is so in keeping with the theme of the book.
And I also think over time, her perception of how affection and love is shared has been skewed a little bit based on choices she's made. Trying to be vague and not give away spoilers.
Oh my gosh, yes, I wish I could tell them about that, because there's that whole, there's some really bad marriages in this book.
Yes.
So,
well, one not so great marriage.
Well, both are.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting about the sister.
Poor Vicky.
I know.
Vicky, yes. So both those are almost the whole, again, society and women and expectation, right? So was that?
Yes. I find that the more books I write, the more I find that I really feel strong. I really like to explore women who are strong and they stand up for what they believe in and fight through some challenging circumstances. And sometimes maybe are a little bit more difficult and have complicated motivations, because those are real women. And I like exploring that. And my husband joked that after he read, because he always reads my books early, the men in this book play a very sidelined role. It is very female centric, and he's like, so you're just killing off all the guys. Am I supposed to read into this? Is there more? Is there something you need to tell me? But I really, I have a close relationship with my mom. I have a close relationship with my daughter. I have a close relationship with my mother-in-law. And female friends are very important to me. So I really like to explore the nuances of those relationships.
Yes,
Did I answer that question?
Kind of. I'll bring you back. I'll tell you what I want
What
you
you
to
want?
say.
Okay, I like it when you tell me the answer.
So there's a line there that the mother says to the daughter, and that line was, never let them see your hair color. And I felt like thematically, to me, that was such a heart of the theme of that book.
Yes.
Line.
Yes, absolutely. The grandmother very much is about how things appear.
Yes.
She is from that time. And again, I'm skirting around some of the answer to this, but appearances are very important to her. Yes. And she has lived that way for years and years and years and years. And so absolutely, everything is about, bringing flowers to the hospital is not necessarily about the patient's enjoyment of the flowers. It's about how it appears to people looking in the room and seeing the flowers. Oh, someone obviously loves that patient and is bringing it. And, never letting them see your true hair color. That's an important one. And one I believe in.
Uh-oh.
No. Yours is gorgeous.
Oh, well, that's what we're always told, is that the other person's is gorgeous.
That's true. I have
It's just society telling you that.
I
it's not
know.
true. Mine is no more gorgeous than yours is.
Well, some people I don't like the way gray hair looks on me. It is a personal choice. I don't really care if people see it. I prefer a full head of brunette hair. And
you have the right. That's the thing.
Yes, for me.
I'm going to be silver foxwell, silver vixen. That's
gorgeous.
The plan.
Gorgeous.
My husband is not on board with this plan, but you know what?
See, and my husband is actually, he's like, why do you do that? It's so much work. Why don't you stop? I'm like, because I want to do it.
We should, we should introduce our husbands.
Okay,
so
we can do that.
We have a question from Erica in St. Olaf, Minnesota. Hi, Erica.
Hi, Erica.
Is it harder for the daughter to have the tough conversation with grandmonster or for the granddaughter?
That's a good question. I think it's harder for the mother to talk to the grandmother character because she's had years of her mom telling her how she's doing everything wrong, whereas the granddaughter doesn't have that baggage. So she, there are moments in the book where she does ask very pointed questions of the grandmother, and why the grandmother made those choices she made so many years ago, and because she doesn't have that baggage and she can sort of have that freedom of youth, not realizing there are lines you're not supposed to cross. She's not concerned with the appearances. She's not concerned with her hair color.
Yet.
Especially considering she actually has a orange stripe in her hair.
and I love how,
Which I just realized works really well with what we're
talking about. Exactly. And that also, having miscommunication between generations, right? Because she never really meant to have an orange stripe.
Right.
But, everybody thinks she's being rebellious, but it's a mistake. And so I loved that. But yes. Also what we're talking about in terms of society, right? And how the newer generation just does not get this whole, you were supposed to do this, you were supposed to have, and I love how, and culturally how, this gets lost, I think, in the American culture because, we feel like we've left this bondage of women so far behind, right? That it's not even part of, but as early as or as not far back as 2 generations ago, women didn't have ways of supporting themselves and then had to make the decisions to allow themselves to stay in these. It was an easy choice, and she makes the easy choice. There is that, but it's such an easy choice. It's almost like, you know,
It
and you don't have the tools to do the other thing, and that's
Right.
not so far back.
Well, and it isn't, and actually, you know, the two sisters, you have Gina, who is struggling to make it work after her husband passed away and maybe made the marriage that her parents weren't very supportive of, whereas her sister Vicky made the perfect marriage that her parents approved of and is not at all happy. So, I mean, that's the current generation having those choices, you know, making those choices and still picking the what looks best choice.
Yes, because conditioning.
Yes, because that's what her mom raised her to do.
Yep, yeah.
Make those choices.
And I loved that exact one-on-one choice, you know, choice of marriage and choice of what to do post-widowhood. The
Yes.
fact that they had that exact equivalency and how
Yes.
they handled it was so different.
Thank you.
I loved Gina, and well, which kind of brings us to the whole cultural aspect. I always love the Wisconsinian the Wisconsin aspects of your
Yes.
books, and I love how you say Milwaukee, because I say Milwaukee and you say Milwaukee.
There's no L that
There's
just
no
goes
L.
straight to the W.
Oh dear, Milwaukee. Okay, there you have it.
Perfect. You did it.
Yes. So I love that whole, and it's a lot of the book is not set in, but you kind of go into the whole Polish culture.
I
So tell
do.
us some more about that, and then we can talk about how that relates to the
Yes.
cover.
So in Milwaukee, there is a very strong Polish community, and I did a lot of research into how they immigrated in, and I wanted to showcase some of that because you can't, anywhere you, and I know Chicago is very similar. They have a huge Polish community, and so I wanted to introduce some of those fun, because the last names are great. You know, half the time they don't have any vowels until like the end, and I wanted to introduce some of that flavor. So like I have a scene, plus in Wisconsin for a long time, Polish jokes were the thing. So they were the ethnic group that you were looking down upon, especially, you know, earlier in the century. And, you know, if you're going to tell a joke about, you know, oh, the Polak, which was, you know, very offensive.
Yes.
During the day. And so I wanted to explore some of those class issues, but what was really interesting to me about diving into when the Polish immigrants were coming over is, unlike some of the other waves, they felt land ownership was very, very important. And so the first thing they would do is save up and buy a little postage stamp of land on the south side of Milwaukee, and they'd build a house on it. And then once they got, you know, their kids were old enough and ready to have their own place, what they would do is they would lift up the house and they would build a bottom level. And so you'd have sort of a split level house, and they call them in Milwaukee Polish flats. So, and you can go around the south side of Milwaukee, you can see all of these houses that have this partially exposed bottom level, which was a second apartment. And I just was fascinated by that. And then of course the Polish, we have different community centers, and there's places where you can get amazing pierogi and yummy Polish desserts. So I'd like to introduce those little flavors in there. And one of my characters who is the good friend to the grandmother and that was the nanny to the daughters when they were growing up is of Polish descent. And there is a great scene at the Polish Fest where, I'll bring it in full circle, a very sweet romantic scene between Gina and her boyfriend at the time, because he's Polish. He's a Zoberski. And he puts a Polish flower crown on her head, and the Polish flower crown is not, it's more flowers around it than this, but this is what this is. It's called a wianki. Starts with a W, because they say W's with a V.
Yeah, I was like, oh. And I love that that's on the cover, because
Yes.
let's segue a little bit into the
Yes.
cover, because this is the cover that I read, and I usually match my clothes to the book on the show. So this is the one that I had that I was going to wear today, and then they changed it to this.
And I told her to wear the pink, and it looks awesome. I love it.
And it's a little, sorry. It's a little more, I think it's looking a little more blue on the screen.
Yeah.
It's a little more gray.
Yeah.
It's kind of almost like a gray blue and then the ashes of roses kind of thing.
Yes.
But it's really interesting that you had one finalized cover and then it was
Yes.
changed. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So we had the cover set way back in September of 2017, and had the early copies printed like you have here. They started sending them out. We gave out a bunch at some festivals. And then right before Christmas, they came to me and said, well, we had our meeting with sales and marketing, and they looked at the cover, and after hearing our presentation, they felt like we could do better. And so they did. They went back to the drawing board, and they came back with this, and I think it's just gorgeous. It's more muted, but I think it's very elegant. I think it really matches the book, because the spoon and the flowers of the original are lovely, but there are no spoons and there are no forget-me-nots in the book.
But there is a Vianchi.
But there is a Vianchi, and it plays a nice role, I think. You get to see it in a couple different places. And I just love, and I think it's just so beautiful, and that it's hanging there, and it's about letting go of things, so it makes sense in the book.
It totally makes sense in the book, because it is, again, thematically very important with the legend of what you would do, what you would do for love.
So the whole purpose of the Vianchi in the Polish tradition is they would, at the Midsummer's Eve festivals, the women would make their flower crowns and they would toss them into the river. And if it sunk, you would sort of never have love and be a spinster. So that was a bummer. You wanted a very buoyant Vianchi. If it became intertwined with another girl's, that was a sign that you would be best friends with that girl. And then if a man jumped into the river and picked your Vianchi out, he was the man for you. So there is this romantic symbol to it, and it is sort of one of my favorite sweet moments in the book.
It's very, very sweet. And and I was just imagining all of these ribbons entangling.
Yes.
I would totally let my Vianchi entangle with yours, Amy.
Yes, absolutely. They would be very entangled.
Yes.
Who cares if a guy picked it up? We would just have a good time.
Yes, absolutely. So also, one of the things I love in your books, and I don't believe I'm going to say this, is that you always, I love potty humor, and you, I'm sorry, I'll admit it on camera, I love potty humor. It makes me laugh. It makes me embarrassed that I'm laughing, but I can't, I can't help
funny.
it. Yes, exactly. And you always have the fart jokes, and I love that. So I'm sorry, this really sweet book that has fart jokes in it. So
sometimes, yes.
and I believe that you're a mother of 2 kids. So
I am. So and my daughter, my 14-year-old daughter, and I have a 12-year-old son, and a husband who also thinks potty humor is hilarious. So sometimes it's funny. It's always funny. So it needs a place.
It's cringy, funny,
yes.
Just lovely. So the sisters have, yes, yes. And you know what? It's so weird that, we all have people in our families who do the things that people in this book do. And we all act like, oh, that's, let's not put that in a book and ignore that.
Yes. Well, and I did enjoy developing that relationship between the sisters. I have a very close relationship with both of my sisters, but one lives very close to me, so we see each other often. And I like that, and I do feel a little bad that Vicky doesn't get her own chapters sometimes, because I think her story is very important, and she still plays a very big role in the book. But I did love writing the banter between them.
Yeah, I'm waiting for Vicky's book, I'll tell you.
I would love that.
I'm waiting for Vicky's book, because I was like, I need to know what's going on there.
I have a lot
and 2 sets of twins. Hello. Or are they both twins, or are the younger ones
No,
twins?
it's just the one set of twins, and then the 2 regular.
Okay.
She's
like, oh
4
gosh,
kids makes me tired to think about.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, she deserves, just for popping out 4 kids, she deserves a story.
I know. And don't ask me to name them right now, because I don't think I could name them.
Name them. I don't think she could name them.
I need to reread it again. And I reread it like a month ago before, because the book has been you know how it is.
Yes.
It comes out you're done with it so far before it comes out that you forget some of those little nuances.
Yeah, it's always, I don't know that I forget, but I certainly have to kind of reposition myself inside of the book that I have been trying to let go of a year ago. Yeah.
Especially since you're probably, at least for me, I'm usually already thinking about the next one.
Yeah, I mean, with us, with the 1-year gap, you're bang in the middle of the next one when this one's coming out. But can I talk about this other book that I'm doing?
Right. But this is the one I'm working on. Yeah, and though I'm going to have a gap year. I won't have a book out next year. which I'm grateful for.
I
But
was going to
I'm
ask about what you're
still-
working on. So
I am just about, I've had a little nuggets in the back of my head. I really want to write, as you know, I write all my books set in Wisconsin, and I really want to set the next one in the Wisconsin Dells, which is a super crazy, quirky part of the state. We're the water park, it's the water park capital of the world, but it also has really quirky history. But it's set in this beautiful landscape of, natural rivers and forests and rock formations. So it's this strange little melding place where just strange things happen, and I'm looking forward to exploring that.
oh my gosh, I'm so there, because I love when you do like a little bit of the magical realism, like you
Yes.
did in The Simplicity of Cider, which is also a beautiful book.
Yeah.
And I have to mention that Amy's our first repeat guest. She was here for Simplicity of Cider, and we loved having her.
They can't get rid of me. That's really what it is. I
She's
just never
taking a
left.
gap year, so you have. But yeah, that sounds like the perfect setting for that,
It's gonna
right?
be really fun.
There's just a smidge of it in this book with the stroke. You want to
Yes.
talk a little bit about that?
So in the researching of my book, I researched since the grandma has a stroke, I researched all the different information about strokes. And one of the symptoms, it's rarer, but you can have hallucinations. And I loved that idea. So I stole it and I used it. So when she's having her strokes, she sees things that aren't there. And I really wanted to explore that, but I also think it works on different levels, because I don't think a lot of people know that's a symptom of strokes. So in my mind, it's medical. But I do think it plays in nicely to people's different belief systems. You could even see it as maybe a little bit of magical realism. So there's a lot of different ways that a reader can interact with that scene. And I like that. I like that, because once a book is done and it's out into readers' hands, it's for them to see what works for them. They can interpret it how they want and how they react to it. So yeah, I like that it works on different levels, but it is medically possible to have a hallucination.
Right, and yeah, because at that point you're thinking, that is also your first introduction to this husband that she sees with such love, which is not what you're seeing in her. And so you're like, what did I miss? And so that's a lovely little sliding into that. Okay,
Sneaky.
so we're out of time, but I have two things I want you to do. I want you to do a quick recommendation, what you're reading right now.
Oh my gosh. I'm actually between, no, that's not true. I just started The Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. I saw her at a book event with my daughter yesterday, and my daughter was like, Mom, you need to read these books. So she actually started reading the book to me in the car. And so that is one of the books I'm reading. But I'm also about to start a book called Life on the Leash. And I am blanking on the author's name, and I'm so sorry, because she's delightful, and she's a professional dog trainer, and she did the Puppy Bowl, and I'm so sorry, but I'm really excited. That's not out until the fall, though.
But yeah, that's such a great title.
Isn't it
Always
great?
have title
It's a
envy.
great cover too.
And also, as we leave, tell them where to find you, a little bit about the
yes.
puppies, maybe?
Yes, so you can find me at amyereichert.com. I am also on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. All of those links are on my website. And then I'm also part of a group, and so is Sonali. Yay, she's a new member. We're called the Tall Poppies, and we are a group of women authors that work together to not only help promote one another, but promote all female women authors, because the theory is if there's an ancient Roman story where if one tall poppy grows up, it tends to get caught off or falls over. But if all of them grow up together, then they can all stand taller together. So that is the theory where the tall poppies come from. So yeah, that's what we do. And we have an amazing group of women. And if you're looking for new authors, just to look down the list, you're going to find a ton.
That is, I did not know that. I'm a new tall puppy, and I did not know that, and now I do.
Usually never explain the story very well. That was the first time I've ever nailed it.
You nailed it. You nailed it. I totally will be using that.
Yes, it's exactly our goal, is to lift all women writers.
That's fabulous.
Yes.
That is fabulous. Thank you so much for
Thank you
being
for having
here.
me again.
And
it's so fun.
This is always great to have you. So yes, it is Optimist's Guide to Letting Go, which is such a great title.
Thank you.
And a fabulous, fun book Thank you, Amy, again for
Thank you.
being here. Thank you, Gallery Books, for sending us Amy. And please order the book on authorsvoice.net. And also leave us comments if you're coming to this later, and I'm sure Amy can stop by and answer them. It will also be on YouTube, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you can go to authorsvoice.net and still buy the book. All right, upcoming shows. What we have coming up later today, there's another show today, so we've got to rush out. But coming up later today on Solved is mystery author Michael Corretta. He'll be here to take questions about his latest, How It Happened. On Tuesday, May 24th, on Stranger Than Fiction, author Joan DeJean will be here to talk about her newest non-fiction work, the amazing The Queen's Embroiderer. Ooh. Interviewed by Paul Berlanga. That's Thursday at 12:30 p.m. Coming up next on Lit with Love in June is the very fabulous Catherine Ash and Sarah McLean. So we have this double treat coming up in June that will be between 8th and 11th. I don't know the exact dates, but stay tuned. Thank you so much for being here. This is Sonali Dev saying bye-bye and thank you.
Thank you.